Thank you very much. My name's Niel Ayling. I'm the Chief Officer for Social Services at Flintshire County Council, and as the Chair was saying, with me is my colleague Rhian Evans, who's the Team Manager in Flintshire for Mental Health Support Services, and our colleague Sue Woods, who's the Director for Flintshire Advocacy Services. Can I just check you can all hear me? Yes. Does anyone here work outside England? Right, Wales? Scotland. Okay, so it's, I mean, obviously there was very much a Celtic feeling earlier on with colleagues in terms of where you were from, in terms of, so in a sense we're bringing the Welsh dimension. And it's very great to have that invitation. I'd like to thank the organisers and the Chair to actually talk about some of our practice in Wales. And hopefully it will deal with some of the issues we've been talking about, certainly recovery and actually dealing with services upstream and very much certainly outside the acute sector is something that our presentation can concern. So thank you for that. I thought none of you might know Flintshire or have been there, although our MP colleague clearly doesn't live too far away. Flintshire, so we're going to do that. We're going to talk about how we provide person-centred support to people with mental health problems. Very practically, we're going to talk about personal stories, and we're going to actually use those to actually demonstrate the impact we think we've had. How this supports people to actually lead fulfilling lives. There's real challenges for us all in the public services and local authority, and sometimes we ask the question, what is our purpose really? What have we the resource to actually carry on in terms of our priorities? And quite clearly, supporting people to lead fulfilling lives, I think, remains one of those key things. But how that can actually help to minimise the impact on budget. We talked earlier about the dilemma between upstream and downstream services. We found by having effective recovery services, we actually reduce some of the demand on some of those secondary care and care home provision that we found in Flintshire. Focusing on the importance of learning, and this is learning at all levels, learning for individual people, learning for teams, and learning for services is key for the whole services. And we're going to say a bit about what we think works. Within your pack for the course today, I think on the inside cover on the back is one of the actual stories of one of our colleagues and service users that works with us in Flintshire, and to some degree she's describing what works for her, and in a sense that we think that's very powerful, and those are some of the things we want to share. Overview of Flintshire. It's one of 22 Welsh unitary authorities. We just talked about the prospect of reorganisation. That's not going to be the case for very much longer. We're going to actually reduce that in Wales down from between 6 and 13. We're not quite sure how much, but in a sense that's what Welsh Government are actually that's their proposals. The idea being that slightly bigger will be better. Remains to be seen, but in a sense will be in some element of reorganisation in the next 3 or 4 years. Flintshire is a population of 150,000. You can see where it is on the map, just bordering sort of Cheshire and the Wirral. It's a very mixed demographic in terms of areas of deprivation and affluence. Coincidentally, some of the most deprived wards in Wales are on the coastline. Some of the affluent areas tend to be more in some of the rural, hilly areas inland. But in the sense, that's a huge overgeneralisation. But we have those communities very much cheek by jowl with each other's. The public sector partners are not coterminous. Our health board is called the Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board. There were some colleagues due to be here today from BCU, but that covers all of North Wales. So that brings some challenges, but of course we deal with that, and in a sense we have, as you will expect and know, very good links with health colleagues around that. And we border England. Some services in terms of what people receive clearly cross the border, A&E services, and some mental health services. However, I have to say there isn't a great deal of coordination between, in my experience, North Wales and North East England, although I and others have tried to actually foster that. And social services and health, as you know, is a devolved issue in Wales. We don't have trusts. We don't have some of the commissioning arrangements that you were referring to earlier on. We have our own legislation in terms of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, which is due to be enacted in 20 April next year, and in a sense, quite clearly some of the proactive responsibility for local authorities to promote well-being is something that is seen to be different about that Welsh legislation. Okay. Overview of Flintshire Mental Health Services before I pass on to very much the experts in it. We do have fully integrated CMHTs, like I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. But they are based in, and we have a single management structure, but that manager could be someone from the local authority as well as someone from the health board. And a key part of our approach is, we think, in terms of a crucial commissioning approach. The complementary services that the third sector provide in Flintshire and which Sue will talk about, we believe are fundamentally important to a model that we've made and the model that can actually be successful. We have sought to operate to new service models. Social enterprise has been a key element that we've tried to take forward. We have an organisation in Flintshire called Double Click, which is a printing and publication business, and that's actually been used as a model for the wider council to take forward in terms of spear taking forward social enterprise. I mentioned that residential placements are very low for Wales. And we believe that is linked to the actual successful community support that is provided by some of the services we'll hear about in a minute. So in a sense, we think we are achieving one of those goals. We're actually providing much better quality services, but actually it actually makes the service more able to actually cope with the overall demands. And as I've said, we have sought to foster high levels of collaborative effort, both with health colleagues, with the voluntary sector, in actually taking forward a comprehensive recovery model, and that was recognised by the Care Council of Wales, in terms of a Social Care Accolade Award last year. So that's a quick overview in terms of Flintshire. I'll just pass you on to Rhian now. Thank you.
Okay, so please excuse my nerves, everybody. I'm a humble team manager, so I'm going to talk in very real terms about how I feel my service helps people in the community to live more independent and fulfilling lives. So first of all, I just wanted to show you this quote to highlight how important it is for people to have valued roles within their lives, and that people aren't just seen as somebody with a diagnosis of mental illness. This is Karen, who's a support worker in my team. She wasn't recruited as a peer support worker. She was recruited in the usual way, and she won't mind me telling you that I interviewed her 4 times before she was successful in actually getting a job with us. But the beauty of having Karen working with us is that she brings a huge amount of life experience and empathy to the role. And of course, the most important thing in recovery is that she offers people hope. But when we talk about valued roles, I think it's important to emphasise that it isn't just about paid employment. It can be any role within society which the person chooses to achieve in life. Okay. So this is my team. We get referrals mostly from the community mental health team, so secondary services. I have 60 staff and peer volunteers working in 6 teams in various community settings. And I think the important thing to say here is that they all have slightly different roles, which hopefully support people to achieve various goals, but within different elements of their lives, taking into account the whole person. So, as I've said, 60 staff and peer volunteers. And the support falls within 3 broad categories. So the accommodation support, to begin with, a strategic decision was made a few years ago to invest in establishing an intensive support team. and this provides a high level of individualised support to people so that they can be discharged safely from hospital or be prevented from entering residential care services. And this, I think, accounts for Flinch's comparatively low need for complex specialist placements, costly placements really. So this, I feel, is a general saving, a huge cost saving. Last year, the team was very successful in supporting people in their own communities, particularly a number of people that came out of residential care, one of which had actually been in residential care for 8 years. So I think that's quite a big achievement. That person's now living successfully in their own tenancy. And then we come on to social support, extremely important part of people's lives. We actually closed a few years ago the traditional day centres in order to set up a service called Social Links. And this provides a better, more socially inclusive and person-centred service, actually supporting people as individuals and as groups within community activities, mainstream activities if you like. And this work reflects the diversity of people's interests, including assisting people to run their own groups. And they also have open access groups in order to reach more people, and they also use peer volunteers. And then we move on to the occupational and employment support, which Niel briefly mentioned. We have 2 work services called Double Click Design and Growing Places. Double Click Design is soon to become a social enterprise, and that all happened, or more specifically a social firm which will offer people paid employment. And that happened a few years ago in response to a letter I received from a person that was using our services, saying, we're going along to these work services, we're doing proper work, some of us want paid employment, why can't we be paid for what we're doing? And I was like, well, I can't really argue with that. So I did some research. I'm not a business person, I come from a social work background, didn't know anything about social enterprise, but today we're actually just in the process of signing on the dotted line, and Double Click is becoming social enterprise where we can offer people training, placements and paid work. So we're very proud of that, and it's another step away from statutory services, which is what we want. And also then finally, just to mention Next Steps. Next Steps actually is the service that receives the most referrals and has a very high success rate. It's about providing support and guidance for people to enter or retain, which is important for me to say, education, training, voluntary work and employment. So how this works, how this is successful, is that all these teams work together with the individual. They respond to fluctuating levels of need and also provide a pathway out of statutory services. So in real terms, I'd like to refer you all to the back page of your green folder, and I mean you can read it at your leisure really, but that article that you can see there, which was published in our newsletter that we produce, was written in Sian's own words. She wrote it herself, so I think it is important that you read her words rather than mine. But Sian was hospitalised following the sudden death of her child, suffering with extreme, very serious mental health issues, as you would probably. And on leaving hospital, she received daily intensive support with very sort of basic tasks, but vital tasks that she needed support with in order to live in the community. And then she went on to attend social links groups to build confidence in social situations. Then she went on to attend Double Click, which is the social enterprise that I was just talking about. She's now in full-time education doing a university degree in graphic design, has come back to Double Click as a volunteer, and once we're up and running with the social firm, we're going to be paying her. So for me, that is a huge achievement, and I hope she moves on from Double Click and, you know, gets a job in an ordinary employment setting. That would be the ultimate goal, and I'm sure she'll achieve it. Sian is very proud of her achievements, and she really owns them, and rightly so. So there's some feedback here. We have an annual questionnaire that we distribute every year. This was sent out to 400 people this year. And we got about a quarter of them back, which I believe is quite good. So I'll just let you kind of have a look at those yourself, but there is some very positive feedback there from the people we support. You might notice that I don't use the term service user very often. That's because I believe that fundamentally we're working with people, and we're all people, and we're all likely to experience mental distress at some time in our lives. And there's some actual comments that people made. And as you can see, they're quite illustrative of the importance of regaining skills and having a place in society, help with voluntary work and courses. I've achieved more than I ever thought I could do. Next steps have helped me to stay in employment and have helped me gain qualifications. And most importantly, the service is helping me cope with life. And that's all about becoming resilient, really, and people learning their own coping skills for the future. So there's just a number of ways there in which we... Okay. Sorry, I'm waffling on, I think. But we do actually have... There are a number of ways that that we can help support people in the community, that we can implement within services. I know it costs money to deliver services, but there are certain elements, I feel, that actually cost very little, and that's about the attitude, that's about the ethos, that's about the importance of the support worker relationship on the ground, that it's a coping relationship. We don't do things for people, we do things alongside people until they feel able to do it themselves. Okay, and there's a few more as well. Okay. So now on to the Learning for Wellbeing project, which I'll let Sue tell you a little bit more about.
We're going to have the very fast version because this is probably... No, that's fine. My name's Sue Woods. Obviously, I'm the Service Director for Flintshire Advocacy Services, and I'm here to talk about one element of our service, the SAFE project. We're committed to the Flintshire model of a coordinated approach in supporting the people who use our services on their own journey to recovery, building their own resilience. The ethos of our organisation from the beginning has been about service user-led, and a key principle of empowerment is obviously embedded in advocacy. So when we were given the opportunity to do this work, to build on what we do as advocates to get people to be able to do things for themselves, we were more than delighted. I've gone off on this. Like we did a course called All About You. That was service user-led, service user written, service user delivered to very small groups, 2 to 3, with 2 facilitators, both of whom use services. And we were no longer able to do that because we were funding it out of our own resources. But then in this coordinated approach, we were asked to expand on that, and that's how the SAFE project came into being. What we're here to talk about, though, is what makes it work, and that's what we've been talking about today. It's all very well talking about things, but actually it's about the practical things that make a difference to people's lives and building their skills. So our course, we feel, is unique, and it's certainly nothing like it in North Wales per se. It's become very successful. It's only been running for a year and a bit. The starting point is always the facilitator, Jude, meets the individuals, talks to them about what their hopes and aspirations are, and then looks with them at what courses, what elements might be most appropriate. We run a whole range from very, very small groups to slightly bigger groups, because obviously if you're not very confident and you're not likely to last a course that involves a big group. People have choices. The courses are held in a variety of venues across Flintshire. They're at times in the day that people can make. They're not at 9 o'clock in the morning. because that doesn't suit people. It just doesn't work. People have caring responsibilities, people have children, people struggle with medication to get up in the morning. So you're setting people up to fail if you start the courses at a time. So they're all between like 11 and 1 and 2. They're free. I built that into our costing. I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to do the transport bits, but what we found with people weren't able, when you're on benefits, asking people to get a bus that costs £3.50, they won't come because they need that money for something else. So it's free. They can get their costs refunded. But what we're actually finding is people are asking less and less for that money. It's almost as if once they're engaged in it, they're willing to get there. And we do try and make them in accessible places so their transport costs are minimised. Food is always very important. I'm sorry. We've always got tea, coffee, cakes, nice biscuits. They don't cost very much and makes people feel important and valued. And the project is that not only helps people develop skills and confidence, it's about building on their existing strengths. It's seeing this as a positive. You know, people come who are resilient, who've dealt with hugely challenging situations. Right, here's this is a very whistle. Oh, what am I doing? Right. This is a flavour of some of the titles, obviously. Each of them has a specific focus. They're developing self-awareness and skills in relation to things like how you communicate, which is a biggie for lots of people because they end up being either passive or aggressive and nobody listens to them either way, and it's about how do you do that? Am I assertive or not? How do I know if I'm making progress? Because that's another bit. People don't measure, they measure themselves against themselves, and until somebody reflects back to you, look, when you first came here, this is how you were. Now, look at what you're doing. A lot of people facilitate the courses. About managing change, some of this is, and that's a biggie for people, isn't it? Change. And I think the theme from certainly from the beginning, I hate the phrase, I don't use the phrase service users either, and whenever you say the word mental health, everybody always goes ill health, and it is absolute, we've all got mental health, it's part of our being. Anyway, right. And the aim of this isn't now you're in a whole, now we're on a course, now you're in the project, you stay in it. What we've actually found, and we've only been running this particular for 18 months, is that people move on. The people who are doing this year's courses are not the same people as last year, which I think is hugely positive. And those people are going off to do a whole range of other things. They're co-delivering sessions where they want to, where they're facilitating some sessions and running some on their own now. That's always been a key element of what we wanted to develop. That's quite challenging. In a recovery model, you actually, the challenge is moving people on, not actually then you now become a facilitator in a project. So I'm not, you know, there is a tension there between how much of that is actually moving you on and how much of that is sticking you in the same system. The feedback we get is incredibly powerful. I mean, people here saying, I never got out of bed. Now I love going to these groups. People who are afraid of men, you know, actually seeing the men in the groups as having the same frailties as them, you know, all kinds of issues. People, we've had several already, are going on volunteering and work. You know, what we do is very complementary to the ethos of Flintshire County Council and fits with our ethos perfectly. And it's about taking forward your learning in a practical way that makes a difference to your life. How did I do?